Greetings, Sholar, and several other persons I am sharing this video with. For those who I'm sharing the video with who are not Sholar, just to let you know, so you know when I'm referring to them, that the Sholar are the core team of my New Earth Star Inner Academy. And we do very specific work together. It's really taken off all of a sudden. For a year, it was rather just inner, and then boom, all of a sudden it became a lot more outer in the sense of having specific things to work with. And the main thing is called the Askia. And the Askia is a protocol that we use that's the baseline, so Thoth tells me, for all that we are working with. And it's actually very simple, and we move into it quickly. And we've been experiencing, a lot of us have been experiencing some dreams, visions, and really powerful things as a result of it. Which more or less brings me to what I wish to share with you today. The topic is basically the what seems to be setting up on the planet at this time that is connecting to me and the work that I do. But it's much bigger than that, of course. It's much bigger than little old Maya. But I have to come to it from that perspective because that's where I am. And I feel that if it has any value at all, it has a lot of value. Because either it really is something big or it's just not. So I wish to share it with all of you because I feel that it does have this value. So we shall see where it goes. Today's date is November 7th, 2016. I think many of us know, who is listening to this video, the importance of the connection between Hawaii, the Hawaiian Islands, and Crestone, Colorado, and the Baca Grande, and the whole plateau, really, but Crestone is the center of the whole thing. I won't go into all the stories about that because most of you know it anyway, and it would take too long. But there is a strong connection between the two, and most especially the strong connection from my work and what I'm doing is between Kauai and the Crest in the Stone retreat of Thoth, interdimensional retreat, which is anchored in, I believe it's called Challenger Peak in Crestone, which is also the place of the thresholding chamber of the sacred On or Ark. And I was told when I moved to Crestone and lived there for 7 years, that was back in the 1990s, that this would be the eventual location of the sacred On that would move from the thresholding chamber it was in to the one in the Crest in the Stone, and that would be its final place on the planet until, of course, the transfiguration of the planet into the New Earth Star dimension. Well, that occurred. The actual moving of this ark occurred about 3 years ago, 3 years ago. And I was amazed because I thought it would be way past my lifetime. So that's a big event there. But back to the connections here. As I shared with Sholars more recently, as I was doing my Askia process not long ago, I saw the Crest in the Stone Mountain, and I saw the crystal skulls of the host crystal skulls that connect to the dweller crystal skulls that we're working with, the dweller beings. And I saw a beautiful light wafer come out of Crest in the Stone and be imprinted on the third eye of every one of the host crystal skulls. And this was called the Manasari Corona. Now, I had to go back in my work, and I found from about 2 years ago, or maybe 1 year ago, writings that I had done, transmission from Thoth, concerning the Manasari, which is a dynamic that comes out of the sacred On that is now in the thresholding chamber. It's become something different. You see, the sacred On now has become a different kind of energy field than it was before. We're not talking about a little box here. This is bigger than that. And so this Manasari energy was forming this wafer. And when I went back and read it, it was there. It was. I can't remember all these things. Bear in mind, I just get too much. And over 50 years of stuff, I can't remember even, just a little bit back very much. So this was like, oh, there it is, because I had seen it. I had seen it come out and land on the third eyes of all the skulls, but I didn't realize that I'd written this Manasari thing, and it connected perfectly. So that was the last big part of it all. As most of you, I believe, know, I've been feeling a very strong pull to move back to Crestone. And this began when I read about the New Templars and what their plans were, and the priory they had established with Bill and Edie in Crestone, and with Rob in his land in Crestone as well. There's 2 different priories there. And all of that, when I started reading about it and their plans and everything, it just set me on fire. It was very strange because I read about a lot of wonderful things, and I don't want to become part of it. It's like there's so much out there, and there's many people are doing beautiful work, and I've not had, that draw like I did there. And I wanted to be back in Crestone. It was just very, very strong. So, as you all know, I have chronic health situations where it's really difficult for me to get up and walk around the porch and back. So contemplating moving to Crestone, Colorado from Kauai is quite a thought. And as I put everything into the equation, I was all set to go in February, and I was just going to go, and it was going to happen, and then reality started kicking in. For one thing, it's so wonderful that I have these wonderful Sholar in my experience, and these ladies and gent, and the fact that 2 of them, Valerie and and Allison, are so willing to help me with this. Allison figuring out all the logistics of the travel, which she's really done already, and Valerie being willing to travel with me, and even Unity, would like to travel with me, and it's like, so I have all this help. But, little Maya has a lot of fears around her physical body and getting it from point A to point B. And I guess that's the main sticking point right now. I don't know. Maybe there's something else behind it, but that seems to be it. And I'm not going to belabor the point, but that's where I stand at the moment. I want to be there. I feel I will be there. And I'm thinking, oh, well, let's give it some time. Let's give it some time. Let me try to get my pain under control better. Let me do this. Let me do that. And let me wait and see if some funding comes through, so I don't have to spend a little bit of my last savings to get there. And then, what happens next? And all of these, things that come up in the primal brain, in the reptilian brain. And so I'm dealing with all of that right now. But let's put that aside for a moment and get to what I really want to talk about here. So last night, which would have been was it last night? It was the night before. No. See, that's how time is with me. It was last night. Yeah, it was last night that I had an experience with the Askia that I have not brought forth yet because I haven't had a moment to do it. But here I am, and I want to share it with you. I was at the threshold of going into the Askia. The way it's set up, the protocol is that the Sholar gather, the 19 of us circle around the center of the Pyramid of Giza, but it doesn't look like the Pyramid of Giza. It's the temple, the risen one, and it looks like that. And we circle around it, and inside is what Thoth calls the midden chamber, and Hertog refers to it as chamber of the sun, S-O-N, and it's in the pyramid. It's a tiny, tiny little chamber at the upper quadrant of it somewhere, according to Thoth. And so we see the midden chamber, and inside it is the point where we're all aiming for. And we have these threads that come out of our hands, and a thread. We're holding a thread, each one of us, and the thread moves into the midden chamber. And inside the midden chamber, it forms a flower of life pattern. And it's all alive and silvery and beautiful, and the threads are silvery. You can see the energy moving through. Well, the hosting skulls are at the midpoint between the thread, on the thread, between us and the midden chamber, the pyramid itself. So it's us, the host skulls, the pyramid, and inside the midden chamber where the flower of life develops. There's other aspects of all of this I'm not going to go into, but that's the main setup. So last night I followed the thread into the flower of life in the center of the midden chamber, and then I just went whoosh like down the rabbit hole, and I was suddenly in a very simple stone labyrinth, like little rocks, little round rocks making a labyrinth, on the ground. And I looked up, and there was Crestone the stone there. So I felt, okay, I'm in Crestone, and I'm in a very little primitive rock labyrinth. And I felt the power of it. It was so powerful. And I was walking the labyrinth. And then I think it was at that point, because in the experience, I will come back to the labyrinth, and I'm not sure whether it was my first time at the labyrinth or my last time at the labyrinth, but I believe it was the first, that I looked up in the sky. Well, it was nighttime, but there was a big full moon. Aren't we supposed to be having one coming up? And the biggest we've had in years and years and years. Well, anyway, there was this big full moon, and I could just see everything was just illuminated in the, golden, like in the night. And I saw 7 eagles circling what I knew to be the land that Simeon and I once had for Spirit Heart Sanctuary, that was called Kalandara. Thoth named it Kalandara. And it's right off the blue fire meridian that comes off the crest in the stone where the ark is. So I saw right around over that. I knew it was over that. I saw 7 eagles circling. Now I remember that I had received a transmission from Thoth on 7 eagles circling at Crestone over Kalandara. And that was way back in the 90s. And I have no idea where that transmission is now. I don't even know that I don't seem to even have the files from that period. One would think that I do, but I can't find them. So I can't go into that. But that's what I saw. But I also saw myself with wings. It was like I was standing in the labyrinth, and these eagle wings developed on my back. And then I saw the 7 eagles above Kalandara, the land off the blue fire meridian, in front of Crestone the stone. At that point, oh, wait a minute. Hold it. I keep forgetting this. I have to go back. When I went down the rabbit hole, before I got into the labyrinth, just before, in fact, it was before I actually went down. It was just when I was looking at the flower of life, just before I went whoosh, down and through and into the labyrinth, just before, I had a vivid picture of what I would describe as Lord Shiva, I guess. The one that, with the arms, all the arms. And I saw the face. It was, and in the part of the body, I couldn't see all the arms all the way out. It was like they were kind of in the dark, but I saw from the shoulders, I could see that there were arms, more than 2 of them. And I just knew it was Shiva. And the blue skin, and the face was like painted like East Indian paint, like you'd see Shiva represented. Okay, his face looked just really a lot like this, only not so feminine. It was very strong. And it had painting on it. I don't know if it was the exact same symbols, but the hair was back like that. Is very much like this. And his skin was quite blue, bluer than these pictures represent. But that was what I saw. Okay, now he didn't have a mustache and 2 people with him there, but he did have the blue skin like this. I just want to say it was this blue, the skin I saw. So then I went down the rabbit hole, and I got to the labyrinth. Now, I Googled Crestone and Labyrinths because I know I've been to them there. And of course, I was aware of the big one that I can't ever say the fellow's name that I know, and his labyrinth there. But it's not primitive like this. It's smooth stones. And the only one that I could come up with that looked like what I saw, but I only didn't see it from a distance like this. I was inside it and walking it, is this one, which is owned by someone I know, and Kiara, and she just happens to be the one that I am. If I can move by February 1st, I would have a temporary place to live, and it would be where this labyrinth is. But I have to make a decision soon whether to cancel that or not. And she's just holding it for me in good grace. She's not asking down payment or anything because she knows me. But in all honesty, I need to tell her sooner rather than later that I'm not going to be there by February. But I just can't do it yet. And I told Edie to tell her. And then when I called Edie back this morning, I said, have you told her yet? And she said, no, I just couldn't bring myself to do it yet. So we're just holding off just a little bit longer because I don't know, that this means I should go in February and stay at Kiara's. But it is interesting that this labyrinth looks so much like the one that I was standing in. However, as Bill was saying to me this morning, it was my labyrinth that I was standing in. So it doesn't necessarily have to be anyone else's labyrinth. But it was symbolically, it was the labyrinth that I was placing myself in for this energetic experience. And so, that's neither here nor there whether it's a particular labyrinth or not, I believe. So the next phase, let's go through the phases. First, I saw Shiva. Then I went down the center of the flower of life inside the midden chamber. And then I arrived in the labyrinth. And I looked up and I saw a crest in the stone. Oops, let's get the mountain. Let me get that over here. So we have the right one up here for those of you who may not be familiar with all of this. I saw a crest in the stone where this ark is and where Thoth's retreat is. And I saw the 7 eagles flying around it. And I saw eagle wings on me. And so then I went back to the Askia. All of a sudden I saw the Askia again, and I saw the center of the the flower of life, and I saw the top of the pyramid and the whole thing, and I saw inside the Askia, it was like a cocoon thingy, and it just opened up, and this blue butterfly, this really nice blue butterfly, flew out. Trying to get my picture up here. So this is exactly the color it looked. This is like the butterfly right here. So it flew up out the top of the pyramid from the midden chamber. And then it went and it lit on the forehead. Oh, I don't think I told this part. When I saw that corona come out of the mountain, did I tell you that yeah, I did, that it went to the forehead of every one of the host crystal skulls, that brilliant corona of light, the Manasari, out of the ark. Well, now the butterfly came out and it landed on the forehead of each one of the host skulls. So it went from one skull to the other, and it went all the way around. Now, I didn't watch it go all the way around, but I knew this. When it landed on the first one, I knew it was going to land on the forehead of every single one of the host skulls. So then I went back to the labyrinth, and I don't believe much else happened than I was just standing there and just feeling all of this coming together in my being and feeling the power of it. So this morning, I called Bill and Edie in Crestone, and I told them about this. And as I was speaking about it I explained it all and went through it, and Bill said, well, now just go right back to that space and time. Just go back to when you were in the labyrinth. Don't think about anything else. Just go back there. And what else do you see? What else is coming through? At first, I was just like, well, I don't know. I don't really feel anything more. And, it's kind of dragging my feet. And then all of a sudden, boom, he just opened up. The Thoth intelligence streaming, I would call it, just started flowing. And wow, I was shown how the pieces of the tablets that were brought off Mount Sinai to me, given into my hands, per what Thoth had told me. This was back in 1988, and my friend Dolores, now Estrella, was going to Mount Sinai on 8/8/88 and climbing it. And Thoth told me to tell her that as she climbed it, at some point she would look at her feet, and at her feet there would be several pieces of something, to collect them and bring them back to me. She was walking up the mountain, and all of a sudden she remembered that, and she looked at her feet, and there it was. There were several pieces of these tablets, like a broken tablet, and there were about 5 pieces or so, and she picked them up and wrapped them up and was able to get them back to me. Well, when they returned to me, I was told by Thoth at that time that these tablets, fragments, I was to put them into the hands of the Hopi tablet keeper for him to hold for as long as he felt like holding them in that time. And then he was to return them to me. He wasn't to keep them. But there was a process of exchange of energy, and that the Hopi tablet keeper needed to hold these. Well, I was like hot to get hold of the Hopi tablet keeper, and I was going, well, how do I do this? Where do I find him? And it's like, Thoth said, no, that's not the way it works. You just hold on to these tablets. And when the time is right, this will happen. And to me, that was an amazement, because I was in San Antonio, Texas, with my mother, and, the Hopi tablet keeper was way off in Hopi land. So I didn't know how this was going to work out. But anyway, then when Simeon and I were living in Crestone, and of course he knew about the prophecy that I'd shared with him. And a few of our friends at Crestone knew about it. We'd shared about it. But I never thought of, I thought, well, I didn't know what would happen with that. It was just sort of on the shelf. One day, we got a call from one of our friends that knew about it and said, you got to get over here to the Rinpoches, to the Tibetan whatever there. They said, because the Hopi tablet keeper is here right now. He's here. He's meeting with the Rinpoche. So I grabbed my fragments of the tablets, and we went over there. And the Rinpoche was just about to do a cleansing of the building before he sat down with the Hopi tablet keeper, and they talked. And but when we explained what was going on, they took it very seriously. So the Rinpoche said, well, I'm going to go ahead and do the clearing, but you guys can go over in this little room here. So the Hopi tablet keeper, Simeon and I, and another lady, a friend of ours, she's the one I believe told us that this was happening. We went into this little room. Oh, and also the Hopi tablet keeper's nephew for his translator, because the tablet keeper didn't speak English really well. So that would be 2, 3, 5 of us, I think. And anyway, we were sitting in the room, and so I explained to the Hopi tablet keeper what had happened with the tablets, where they were from, and what my message had been. And the nephew, of course, was translating for me. And the tablet keeper looked right at me. I call him that because I can't remember his name, and it's very long. But anyway, he was looking right into my eyes, just total concentration. So I hand them to him. He very gently takes them into his hands, because there are symbols on these rocks. You could say that maybe it says this way to the bathroom. I don't know what the stone tablet says. It's probably Egyptian. I mean, in your mind, you can rationalize that these tablets are just some, maybe a few hundred years old, is what I'm trying to say. And they mean basically nothing. But, I mean, maybe they aren't. Maybe they're really what, go way back. Or maybe they just carry a charge, whatever they are. But I have to tell you that this was a very, very real experience. When he took those tablets in his hand, the whole atmosphere of the place changed. So much so that his nephew started crying, tears rolling down his cheeks. And the tablet keeper didn't say a word. He was just holding on to these fragments. And, of course, the blessing was going on in the building the whole time we were doing this. And Crestone the stone was right outside the window. So it was, I don't know how long we stayed in there with him, 40 minutes, something like that. And he held onto those tablets. It must have been at least 20 minutes, maybe 30, not a word, still as he could be, just holding the tablets. And the frequency, it was incredible. And Simeon will vouch for this because he was crying too. And so after he did that, he took the tablets then, these fragments, and he put them down on a table and very carefully, again with no words here, he put them together. They all fit together. And we were going, wow, we've never been able to fit them together. And after we took the tablets back, and he thanked me, after we took the fragments back, no one has ever been able to put them back together again. It just doesn't happen. There's pieces missing. How could he fit it back together? It's impossible. And yet we witnessed it happen. So I bring this up because of what I'm going to say next. And that is that in the moment that I was with Bill and Edie this morning, and Bill was encouraging me to go into the Thoth intelligence stream and to try to get more about this with the seven eagles and the labyrinth and all of this, I heard it is to fulfill the prophecy. I was feeling like, okay, should I be going, what is this about me going back to Crestone? Because when I stand aside from it and I get back into my life here and everything, I see it twinkling out of the corner of my eye, so to speak. The minute I turn my focus on it, it just practically draws me through the window. It's like I want to get on a plane, I want to leave everything behind and just go. That's the end of it. That's what I want to do. But then when I move back from it, and I go rationalize it, well, yes, it's there and I'm working toward it, then I can get all comfy and it's fine. But the minute I start focusing on it again, boom, I'm just pulled. So I said to myself, the energy, okay, what is this about? And that's when I got, it is to fulfill the prophecy. Well, I was kind of taken aback by that. I do not prescribe to the fact that any one person, certainly not me, is going to be instrumental in changing the whole planet, And if it's going to be somebody, it might be Bernie Sanders or the Dalai Lama or somebody like that, But so I don't believe that for a second. That's not where I'm going with this. But I did receive that message. So what does this all really mean, And then I saw the tablets. I wasn't even thinking about that. And I saw the tablets, and I saw the tablets, and I was reminded then that I was told back in 1998 when I was told, to have the Hopi tablet keeper hold the tablets and all of this. I was reminded that go back further than that in the 1970s when I was shown that I was to move to Salt Lake City, Utah. I mean, I was washing my hair. I had a towel wrapped around my head coming out of the bathroom. My mother was talking to somebody on the phone, and Salt Lake City was mentioned. I didn't even know anything about Salt Lake City. I don't think I even know it was in Utah. And I looked at her and I said, we're moving to Salt Lake City. And she went, oh, okay. And that took me on this journey of moving back to Salt Lake City 4 times. That's a whole nother story. But I asked why, and this is before Thoth. This is the beings that were working with me, preparing me for Thoth. Why am I supposed to be moving to Salt Lake City, Utah? And they said, because you will have something to do with uniting the Hopi with the original, I can't remember the wording that was used, but the original prophecy of Moroni, or the original something of Moroni. And it had to do with bringing everybody together, okay? All the peoples, the nations, all the spirit peoples, the tribes. It had to do with that. Not that I was going to be the one to do that, mind you. That was not what it said. But that I would have a part in it. And journeying to Salt and doing all this that I went through, all with Salt Lake City and the whole 4 episodes of it, which is a whole nother story, and everything that happened there, my going into Zion, that's another part of it. Not Zion's National Park, and it played a role in that. I won't go into that. There was just so much. And that was all started because I heard my mother say those words. I said that to her, and then I asked the sources I was then working with, what does this mean? And they told me what the impetus of it was. And I went, really? I'm going to do that, And to this day, I look back on that and I would go, well, that certainly didn't seem to happen, did it? But, this was being brought forward to me again. Right in the moment when I was streaming just a few hours earlier with Bill. So I received, this is to fulfill the prophecy. I saw the tablets. I was reminded not only of the Hopi tablet keeper holding them and all of this stuff, but way back, the original message of the Hopis and Moroni, who is an ultra being. So I don't know where all of this is going, but I felt I should share it because it's not really about just little me. And maybe I won't wind up in Crestone. I think I will, but I'm not keying it off of, oh, Maya's got to get to Crestone. I don't think that would be the appropriate way to look at it. So I'm not going to do that. But I do see that whatever is going on here has to do with me and has to do with the tablets in my keeping. And, I think it probably will be taking me to Crestone. But it's a much bigger picture that I'm just figuring in on here. And I feel that those of you who are listening to this probably have pieces of this puzzle, or it's not a puzzle really, but that you're all involved, or I wouldn't be sharing it with you. Involved in some way. How, I don't know. So I promised Bill I would try to get a little more. I said, I don't know, and I ended my last sentence on that. And I really don't, but I'm just going to take a moment. I'm going to pause the video and see if anything else comes through. Well, one thing that I'm prompted to reiterate, because I've probably already said it to several of you, but this whole New Templar reordering, because it's really the old Templars come back as the New Templars. Thoth has been stressing to me, and he was really stressing this before I knew about these New Templars, that the true codes of Solomon were coming back, are back, you could say, and impressed upon this planet. And the whole Osiris Arising project that was given to me to, and now including my, the Sholar and the other people involved, like Unity and whoever, that the Osiris Arising project is very much working with these new codes of Solomon. How, I don't know. That's not been yet explained or talked about. And so the Templars, who hold the codes of Solomon, really figure into the picture. Now, this was before I knew about the New Templars, and I was just thinking Templars in general. And now, of course, now that I know about what I'm calling the New Templars, I see how this is going to take place. I mean, not exactly, but I see the medium, the energy focus that's building. And the fact that these two priories of the Templars are in Crestone, I don't think that is any coincidence by any means. Well, and then there's this, this influx of people considering moving to Crestone that I didn't have anything to do with. People wishing to return, and people that have never been there wishing to suddenly go there. They're friends of mine. They're close to me. It's amazing. I'm not going to go into the whole story for those of you who don't know it, but it's just like all of a sudden people are coming out of the woodwork that I know and suddenly either want to move to Crestone for the first time and have absolutely no reason, not for me to do so. And they didn't even know that I was considering moving back. And others who do know, but are just suddenly feeling the urge to do so. So it's really, that part of it is also amazing. Oh, I was I was shown also when I was speaking to Bill and the streaming came through that this has to do with what's going on at Standing Rock. There's obvious things that are going on at Standing Rock that need to be addressed on this planet that is serving. But this is beyond that. The real thing, the higher level aspect of all of this, has to do with the uniting of the tribes of the earth and bringing the indigenous back together in solidarity. Because, as Thoth told me years ago, well, not too many years ago, but I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years ago, that the baton was being passed. The Earth Keepers, the indigenous being the Earth Keepers, the baton is being passed to a new generation. Not just a new generation within these tribes, like the North American tribes and the Mayans and the whatever, but to a whole grouping of human beings from many tribes that are of a new generation and a new what Thoth would call logica. That's an orientation with the divine logos of the planet. And that they would be turning this to them. They would be handing this over to them willingly, lovingly. But that can't happen until the tribes unite, the indigenous tribes unite. And then when that happens, then the world tribes will start uniting, because we're all from some tribe or another, maybe most of us from many tribes. Because this is the blood path again. We're going down the road of the blood path, the generational sequencing, and we need to complete that in certain ways. It has to come through into fruition before the white road, the path of divine light, grace, can flood the red road and make it a viable pure gem body. So this is the directive now, and this is why Thoth is saying, or the Thoth intelligence streaming brought this to me, that Standing Rock, what is happening there, is tied in very directly to this prophecy. That my calling, my feeling pull to Crestone, whether it's really going to pull me there or not, but this whole thing that's setting up, whatever it means, is tied in directly to the prophecy. Well, now, I don't know a lot about Native American lore, but I do know about that there is something called the prophecy of the condor and the eagle, and there's our eagle again. It's just one eagle, but it's an eagle. So I don't know a lot about it, but it's supposed to be about uniting the tribes. So I'm thinking, well, maybe that's the prophecy, but I don't know. And maybe that prophecy, what's remained of it, that has been passed down through the generations, is not the whole story. Maybe there's more to it. And maybe that's what's being referred to. I honestly am not, at this moment in time, receiving what prophecy. But that's my conjecture, and I read a little bit about it just now, Googled it, and just skimmed over it, and it does have to do with the seven powers of Quetzalcoatl, or at least that was mentioned in the article, which is also Kukulkan. And it is interesting that the latest host was brought through into the latest hosting of a dweller that was brought through was the dweller being, soul, of Kukulkan, just about 2 weeks ago. And it was brought through, and I'm hosting that energy here in the matrix. It was inserted into a crystal skull that was vacant at the time. So unfortunately, I didn't have to go get one. And that's being held there. So I'm wondering, that happened, and now this. And there are these seven powers of the body, the powers of the body that will come forth. And, so that looks like we're moving toward, again, the pure gem body. We could go on, and I'm not going to go much further here because I know every one of you listening to this doesn't have a lot of time. So I'm going to take one last moment and see if there's anything else before I conclude. Okay. The only other thing I'm able to see at this time, I see two streams of water, huge streams of water, like aquifer underneath the ground. And of course, we know that Crestone has one of the largest aquifers close to the surface ever. It's huge underneath there that runs over crystals. So it's supercharged, incredible water. I don't know if it's, but I feel that it's connected. And I see, or I don't even know if see is the right word. Two major arteries of underground water will shift. And when they shift, they will connect. Now, I'm not saying this is happening under Crestone, but it will affect the aquifer under Crestone, and not in a negative way. When these two water currents shift wherever they are, it will charge the Crestone aquifer in a way, it will give it the signals, the energy that it needs for the next round of expression. Now remember, what Thoth told me many years ago, back in Crestone, that Crestone was the crown chakra of the Ascension Temple. That means the Ascension grid. There are different grids on the planet, and out of the Ascension grid, meaning the one that moves us through LP40, Light Principle 40, into the New Earth Star and all of that, that Crestone is the crown chakra. And Mauna Loa here on the Big Island is the base chakra, but where I am at Kauai is the Phi gate. So there's all these different, dynamics involved. But so back to these water circuits, they will shift. It was like two serpents, and they will shift. And when they do that, the circuitry will change, and the water currents really on the entire planet. But the first shift that will occur will be this one of these two currents that is going to affect the aquifer under the plateau, the San Luis Valley Plateau, where Crestone is. And it will be a positive effect, not a negative one. But I'm also being shown how these water currents then will begin to shift all over the planet. But this one is a key one to what we're talking about now, what I'm talking about now, in the prophecy being fulfilled. But I go back to what I asked when I got the prophecy for the prophecy to be fulfilled, and that is, what is drawing me so powerfully to Crestone? I didn't say, should I be going to Crestone? So it's not the prophecy will be fulfilled if you go to Crestone. I just got what is drawing me so powerfully to Crestone. It was so that the prophecy will be fulfilled. And that's open-ended. Let's don't get too far into conclusions there. So, I'm trying to remain neutral in all of this because I know how you can get carried away. You can just get carried away with such things. And you can decide things that have meaning that don't have meaning. Or you can leave out things that have meaning that do have meaning. So, because I know that, I don't want to just plunge in and say, oh, it's telling me I must get to Crestone. But I do see that, I do feel the validity that whatever is drawing me is something about a prophecy being fulfilled. And I do have some kind of relationship to that. But it's not just about me. Everyone I'm sharing it with, I feel, is connected in some way, or I wouldn't be making this video and sharing it. So I probably talked way too long because I am kind of a rambler, I know. And I will conclude at this point, and thank you all for listening.